The following broadcast is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
What's happening, gang? Your boy E-Buck in the building with his brand new, well, we tried it once before, but it's the newer version of it this time. The Big Buck Sports Report. I am, of course, Big Buck himself, Eric B., here to have discussions with you. If you're thinking, okay, what happened to Game Time Audible? Worry not. That show is still valid and going on. We will have an episode for that of you very soon. Rest not. And keep in mind, we want to shout out our guy, Hugh D. Lee. What's going on, Hugh? Hopefully everything is going good with you. You know I'll be in touch with you soon, my brother. In the meanwhile, I'm here to talk sports with y'all this evening on this Sunday night. A lot of good sports going on this weekend. And of course, the best of what's going on this weekend is that Final Four tournament, both the men's and the women's. Now, of course, because we are equal opportunists here and we like to promote both men's and women's sports, we are definitely going to talk about both of those this evening. But we're going to start you on off with the men and what's going on in their tournament. Now, of course, as you know, you've been watching very intently, as many of you have, because the ratings are up this year for the tourney. You will know that the Final Four is now in place. We do have the Final Four set up for next weekend. We got those four teams, but in the meanwhile, we have seen a very, very unpredictable tournament, much like we said it would be if you are fans of the Game Time Audible and been checking us out on the podcast. You will know that me and Hugh both felt like this was going to be an unpredictable tournament, a lot of upsets because there is, and we definitely see that now in these last few weeks, a lot of parity going on in the tourney. We've had a lot of great performances. We've had a 3 beat a 14. We've had a 2 beat a 15. We actually, for the second time ever, had a number one seed lose to a 16 seed. Yes, it did happen. And if you were watching intently, you've seen it all. And why? Why does that happen? Why do you think it's been so tumultuous to the point to where right now in the men's tourney we don't have not one, and I do mean not one number one seed still left in the tourney? It is because of the new brand of college football. In fact, the new brand of college athletics. Those two things that have led to things being different. One, of course, the pandemic, which has led to the usage of the super senior tag, where people who basically were affected by the COVID year, or even if you weren't affected by that COVID year, automatically received not one but two, in some cases, extra years of eligibility to make up for the bad times. And as a result, several people have taken advantage of that. And if you look at a lot of these teams, particularly these teams that are lower seeds in the tourney, but are very upper class laden with these super seniors, as we are calling them, you are seeing that they are definitely having an effect on this tourney, and in fact, on all the college athletics, particularly the basketball, the football, and the baseball and softball in particular, because you had an opportunity. Then, of course, the second thing, and probably the more important thing that's affecting the college landscape, is that thing called transfer portal, where you no longer have to wait a whole year to be once again be eligible to play. You basically hit the portal and be right back playing that next year, ready to go. Many people have taken that opportunity and ran with it. I would say probably out of all the teams you have seen, the vast majority of them that are in the tourney, both men's and women's, have had people who have come from the transfer portal and have basically made out well in many of those cases. So as a result, we had a tourney like no other. Like I said, if you are a big fan of college basketball, you have to love this. Understand that as we look at the tourney now, we have four teams left. The Final Four is there, and it's not the typical blue bloods. In other words, we have a tourney now that has no longer North Carolina, who didn't even make the tournament, mind you, did not make it at all. The team that actually won the national championship last year didn't even make this year's tournament. That should tell you something right there. You also have no Duke, no Kentucky, no Michigan. You have no Gonzaga left. All gone. All the typical teams that you have seen in the tournament over the last decade or two that have typically made it and made it far into the tourney, not in there. You had Michigan State put out in the Sweet 16 by a team from a lesser conference. You had many of the Big Five representatives out early on in the tournament, particularly particular big conferences that you're used to having a whole bunch of teams in. Your ACCs, your SECs, your Big Ten, your Pac-12. Only a few of them left when we got to the Sweet 16. And as we look at the Final Four now, the four teams we have left, we have no teams from the power conferences with the exception of Miami and UConn, who are two of the four teams that have made it to the Final Four. We actually have a number 9 seed in the Final Four for the second time in about a decade. That team would be Florida Atlantic, who made it to the Final Four. Keep in mind, no team that was ranked 8th or lower has made it to the championship game in the last 50 or so years. It has not happened. Basically, looking at the teams we have left, San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, Miami, and UConn, I don't see it happening again. Basically, when you look at the tournament and you look at the teams that are left, you have that one team that stands out with these four, and that would be UConn. They are the only team of the four who have won by a decent margin in every game they've played, at least by 15 points so far. So, of course, I would say, much like most of the pundits, I'm sure, and a lot of you who basically just use your head and see it with your eyes, see that they, out of the teams that are left, are probably the most likely to win this year's national championship. Now, understand when we talk of UConn, we thinking that because of past years of experience and whatnot, okay, yeah, we must be talking about the women, but no, we're gonna get to that in a minute. They are actually no longer in the tournament. Definitely gonna talk about that. That being one of my squads, of course. But when all is said and done, we are seeing parity in college basketball, and I think it is very, very good for the game. Teams like a Florida Atlantic, who basically most people have no idea who they are. It's clear they're in Florida, obviously, but where in Florida, I couldn't tell you, and I'm sure most of you couldn't either. But when it boils down to is that this team is on a wild roller coaster ride, and it's probably a very good feeling to be on campus this evening. Probably with several parties thrown over the course of the last couple of weeks because their team have made it that far, and hopefully the young men on that basketball team are reaping the benefits of being a part of that championship caliber squad, and that they're getting a lot of love shown by people on campus to them. That would be awesome, and it definitely should be something that they will never forget as teammates and as people. And shout out to that coach who basically had them, that coach being Dusty May, the head coach of Florida Atlantic, who had them believing that they could beat all the Goliaths and make it this far. Shout out to you. You have done a great job thus far. Hopefully, you can keep it rolling. Like I said, perhaps you will be the first team ever to be a number 9 seed to make it to the championship game. And perhaps the ultimate Cinderella story of all, you not only make it to championship game, perhaps win it all. It's possible. It could happen. I wish them luck. But in the meanwhile, we are looking forward to watching that this weekend. But also, we got to talk, of course, about the women who are in the Final Four. Not quite there yet, because as you know, the women are about a day behind the men in terms of how they set the tournament up. So we only have one of the Final Four teams right now that have been announced. That would be LSU. But we do have people playing right now. Let me give you a quick update on that as we sit here on the Sports Report to see how those young ladies are doing right now. That would be Louisville and Iowa playing right now. They are in the third quarter. Iowa has a 10-point lead, 59-49 over Louisville. If Iowa makes it to the Final Four as a number 2 seed, that would be the highest they have ever made it there. So for the Big Ten, that's looking pretty good right now. We also have Maryland in the Elite Eight as well for the Big Ten. So hopefully they will do well. You know, as a fan of the Big Ten, you got to root for those guys. But when all is said and done, we are looking at a tournament of several upsets as well on the women's side. Keeping in mind that in the first couple rounds, before we get to the Sweet 16, two of the number ones on that side of the bracket also lost early on. Talking about Stanford and Indiana, who did not quite make it to that next round. And understand, Stanford has a long history of making it far in the tournament. They have won national championships even in recent times, as you know. So the fact that they're not there also indicates what we're talking about on the men's side, that there's definitely parity in college basketball for the women as well. Some of the same reasons that we pointed out. The fact that we have the transfer portal, the fact that we have the super seniors, the fact even of NIL in certain places, making it more easier for certain people to show up. I think the perfect example of how parity has affected the game is you look at the standard of college basketball for the women in the last 15 years. That would be the University of Connecticut, who has won in the last 20 of those seasons 11 national championships out of the 20. That is by far the most in modern times, obviously. And we look at it as now, we are into basically Elite Five. There is no more UConn. UConn actually lost yesterday to Ohio State. As you guys know, who are following the page and the various podcasts, I am a huge fan of the UConn Women Lady Huskies. Been following them for many years now. Uh, it was hard to watch that game for me yesterday. You know, I often tell my co-host over there at Game Time Audible that, you know, even when your team doesn't do well, you should at least enjoy the moment of being able to watch the game. And of course, I did enjoy that for part of that game, but truly, that was not the UConn that I was used to yesterday. They played very timid at times. They played scared. They played a team in Ohio State and definitely give them their props and kudos that were not afraid of them. Many a times when teams walk on the field with UConn over the years, you could tell early on they are not, I repeat, they are not there. They have already lost because they see that big UConn, and oftentimes, particularly when they're at a home game with UConn, they have already lost before they even started playing because they get intimidated just from the reputation. Ohio State walked in that game yesterday with no fear, none whatsoever. They knew what they came to do, and they came to do it. Understand that they basically took recipes out of UConn's playbook by playing hard, playing that just suffocating defense, being well versed in what was needed, which basically was to be in tip-top physical condition at all times in order to make the press effective, in order to play. They had their hands out and hands up. They played an awesome job, particularly on Aaliyah Edwards, who, as UConn leading scorer, averaged about 20 plus points a game this season, held her to 4 points, four of them, okay? Had her in foul trouble for a good part of the game. Basically, outside of Lou Lopez Seneschal, and thank God she was, as a super senior, able to play for UConn this season. Who knows how bad it would have been? I understand UConn actually won 30 games this year, and I'm pretty sure that most programs would take that in a heartbeat. 30-6 for a season, that would be awesome, great. But of course, when you are UConn and you're used to losing on average about 2.5 games a year over the last decade, this makes that the hardest season to deal with. These are the most turnovers they ever had. The injuries, granted, can't use that as an excuse. You made it to the tournament, you made it to the Sweet 16 with those injuries, so can't use that excuse. But yeah, there were many of them throughout the season for UConn. Pretty much every other player on that team was hurt. Of course, with Paige Beckers and Ice Brady not even making it to a game this season, out for the season, you can't help as a UConn fan but wonder how good that team could have been with all of them. Now, understand you have the two super seniors who will probably move on to the WNBA, keeping in mind that the WNBA draft is April 10th, and looking forward to that. And both of them are definitely first rounders, I'm pretty sure. Um, Most of that team that UConn has will be back next year, along with several other people that they have picked up in recruiting. So here's the thing, people. UConn stranglehold on women's college basketball is pretty much not there anymore. They haven't won a championship now in 7 years. Understand that the prima donnas now in college basketball women's is South Carolina, the number one seed, the only undefeated team in the tournament, the team that's most likely will win the national championship yet again, back to back. The last team to do so, of course, the UConn Huskies. We know that. But even they, I feel, are not at a point where they will be the new UConn. They will not dominate for the next decade. There are several very good teams on the rise, Ohio State being one of them. LSU, who are still in the tournament, definitely should be a team that will continue to improve under Kim Melke, who basically did an outstanding job at Baylor, has continued that work over at LSU. You got teams like Stanford that, of course, will be back in the mix at some point, obviously. UCLA and Notre Dame, they'll definitely have something to say about it, I believe, in years to come. And of course, just looking at the Big East and the SEC, who in the Big Ten, the three dominant leagues in women's college basketball, they all had good teams, and I think they will definitely be some improvements along the way with some of those as well. So, just for the future of college basketball, this tournament is a good indication that things are looking up, and that when we watch these things, we won't automatically assume, well, yeah, they're gonna win automatically. You know how that goes. Don't even bother to watch. That's why I feel the ratings are up for both the men and the women, and hopefully that will continue throughout the rest of the tournament. Good luck to the rest of the teams that are in said tourney. I mean, when you look at just how outstanding that has been for folks, I mean, going back to UConn Lady Huskies, think about it. They had made 15 consecutive Sweet 16, unheard of, men or women, never been done. They had made it to 14 Elite Eight, again, men or women, never done. Even in those years of UCLA, remember that was like 11 or 12 straight. That wasn't as many. So when you look at that and how dominant they have been, and the fact that now it appears that that is coming to an end, and I'm pretty sure at some point you got to look at some of the older guards in terms of the coaches, such as a Jim Boeheim, who stepped down from uh, Syracuse after many, many years of being there, almost 50, I believe. You got people like Tom Izzo, and of course Gino Auriemma, that's getting up there in their late 60s, early 70s. Has got to start thinking that maybe it's time for a new day and age to come in college basketball, and maybe time for them to move on and call it a day in terms of coaching, or perhaps they will find some new innovative ways to uh, motivate and fascinate and find ways to find themselves back in the top tier to get a couple more championships under their belt before they ride into the sunset. I sincerely hope so. Coaches like that are good for college basketball in general. But like I said, I like a lot of these young coaches as well, and they have learned from some of the best, and hopefully you will get to know them and see them. I definitely think that Florida Atlantic, if they have any sense, will do everything in their power to try to keep their coach, because I'm sure the offers will be coming to him fast and furious after this turn. So there's that. Anyway, that is our discussion of the Final Four, men's and women's. Uh, Basically, if you are watching this now or you are going to watch this in the future and some of the reboots, feel free to put any comments. And if we don't comment on them right now, we will go back through and comment on later. You know that's how we do. Or you can send your thoughts in my messenger, Eric Buckner Messenger. And of course, you can also reach me on my Instagram, where you will probably find this show moving forward for the most part. We will definitely use this show as a filler at times if we don't do the game time audible for whatever reason. But for the most part, I plan on having this show on Instagram, and we will occasionally have it here, and of course on the YouTube page, the Eric Buckner page. you are familiar with if you are familiar with these podcasts here in the Nighthawk Network. And speaking of Nighthawk Network podcasts, let's talk about a couple of them here in the commercial break. When we come back, we will have discussion about what's going on in the NBA as they are reaching that last 9, 10 games or so in the season, and also talk a little bit of hockey, perhaps. And of course, got to touch on baseball. Baseball starts this week, y'all. This is the show known as the Big Buck Sports Report. I am Big Buck himself. We'll be right back after a couple words from the people of the Nighthawk Network.
We're not asking for your permission. We're not seeking your approval. We're claiming what's ours in the name of our ancestors. We are their answered prayers. This is more than a movement. This is a revolution. Black innocence. What are yours today?
Let's talk.
Hello. It's another glorious day, my tea-sippers, and you know what time it is. I hope you have all of your comforts together because it's time to dish tea. And you're dishing tea, darlings, with Big Meat.
Can't wait. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat.
Darling.
What's going on, y'all? Big Buck back. This is the Big Buck Sports Report. What you are hearing in the background is the potential opening for the Big Buck Sports Report. Still working that out. I might change that up. I might. So, for this caliber, let me know what you think. Comments. That's pretty much what we're going to go, I believe. In the meanwhile, we are back talking more sports with you. We are moving on to the NBA. In the NBA, as you know, we are getting closer to playoff season. In fact, several teams have already clinched a playoff berth as of this moment. And we got other teams playing in the process of trying to do so as well. Let's see what we got going right now, as we got a few teams playing, of course, this evening. Let's give you a quick update on some of those right quick, shall we? In the NBA, we have several finals to report to you. And right now, in the only game that is still playing, you got the Warriors and the Timberwolves having at it. The Warriors with a 1-point lead with 2 minutes and 24 seconds left to go. Tight one there for that. Timberwolves and the Warriors about close to even in the record column. Matter of fact, I got that right here. Currently, the Warriors are 39-36. And we got Minnesota at 37-37. So that definitely is an important game for both of those teams. In other games this day, on Sunday, we had the Mavericks losing to the Hornets. And Lord knows, the Mavericks, who basically were the 3 seed not too long ago, and of course did the big trade and acquiring Kyrie Irving from the Brooklyn Nets, that deal don't look too good right now. They are not playing well with him and Luka together at this point. Have to see what's going to happen there. Although I think I already know. We'll discuss that when the time comes. The Bulls beat the Lakers today. That's interesting. The Bulls are trying to make the playoffs. So are the Lakers. Definitely a game they could not afford to lose. Rumor has it LeBron will be back sometime in the next couple of days. They definitely need him. The Grizzlies beat the Hawks. Grizzlies are starting to come back up now that Ja is back in the building. Hopefully he will keep on the straight and narrow, and we don't have to hear no more bad things about Ja Morant. Let us move forward from that there. The Celtics blew out the Spurs as they should have. 137-93. You got the Cavs 108. The Rockets 91. Rockets on their decline on this awful season for them. Only team worse than them really are the Spurs, and of course those woeful Detroit Pistons of mine who just having a terrible season. Defense atrocious. Don't even get me started. Anyway, Nets lose to the Magic. The Magic surprising in this year where they basically were the worst team in basketball last year. They have definitely improved, unlike the Pistons. They are definitely showing signs that they are moving up and moving forward. Good for them. We got the Raptors beating the Wizards in a game that really don't matter. And we got the Thunder beating the Trailblazers, same thing. Those teams pretty much out of the playoffs. At this point, as the playoffs currently stand, remember, the first 6 teams with the best 6 records in the East and West get into the playoffs automatically. Teams from 7 through 10 in the standings in the East and West are playing in the play-in tournament, where basically those teams play each other to determine who will be the number 7 and number 8 seeds. So basically, you want to be one of those 4 teams at this point if you are not one of the 6. So at this point in the East, of course, you got the team, the best record in basketball, Milwaukee Bucks, 53-21. On top, game or 2 in front of Boston, who are in the number 2 slot. You got Philly, 3, and Cleveland, 4. All 4 of those teams are currently in the playoffs, most definitely right now. So you got that. You got the New York Knicks, a team of interest in the 5th spot. At times the Knicks definitely play up to the standards. They look like they are ready to do something. At other times, the Knicks basically are the Knicks, like they have been the last decade or 2. I see them making the playoffs, obviously, but don't really think they're gonna do much when they get there, honestly. Brooklyn in 6th place, and that is a team that is a very gritty team. Since all the trades of Durant and of course Kyrie Irving, that team that has been assembled now has come together, and they are very young and scrappy and hungry. And I really like the direction that Jacques Vaughn, the coach, has them going in. He would be my choice for coach of the year if not for the outstanding job that's going on in Sacramento, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I think that's a team you do not want to see in the playoffs, to be honest. I'm very curious to see how they do once they get there, and I'm pretty sure they will as well. Basically, at this point, you got Miami, Atlanta, Toronto, Chicago vying for those next 4 spots, and they'll probably up and down it a little bit. So who knows who will end up with what? But again, those teams more than likely will be in the play-in tournament, and we'll have to see what they do. I'm not really expecting much out of Chicago or Toronto. Miami and Atlanta, they might surprise some people. We'll see. But that being said, Western Conference. Now, that's the one that's more interesting right now. We pretty much know who's going in the playoffs in the West. In the East, and pretty much know where. The West is still kind of a crapshoot for most of it. Understand that Denver and Memphis are already in the playoffs. They have clinched their playoff spots by winning their division, so they will definitely be there, and both of them are going to be relatively tough outs, I believe. We got Sacramento at 3rd. They basically probably will be in the playoffs sometime today or tomorrow. Amazingly enough, this is the team with the longest tenure of not making the playoffs of any of the major sports teams. This streak has went on, I believe, about 14 years now, and they're about to break that this season by making the playoffs for the first time in those 14 years. And I wish them luck. Understand that Sacramento Kings are actually the highest scoring team in the NBA this season. Not Philadelphia, not Milwaukee, not Boston, but yes, Sacramento. Understand also, they are not in the top 10 in the defense, though. And of course, Mike Brown, known for being a defensive coach. So changing up the style to fit the players is one thing, but having them ready for a playoffs where that defense will be very crucial, that's something else. You gotta figure most people think they'll be in, they'll do the first round and buy out from there, but who knows what may happen? They again are a young, scrappy team, much like a Memphis or a Brooklyn Nets. So I'm curious to see how they make out in the playoffs, particularly players like Malik Monk, who basically I think the Lakers should try to keep, and Harrison Barnes, who have championship pedigrees from those years in Golden State, and of course Aaron Fox, who is a good player, and Keegan Murray. Say it like that because when you watch that game in Sacramento, that's how they say it when he scores a basket. Very lively crowd in Sacramento, as it always is for some reason. Don't sleep on that home court advantage that they will have in those first couple rounds. That might play to their advantage. So we'll see how that goes. Phoenix is fourth. Again, Kevin Durant should be back soon. Hopefully, he is healthy, and we have to worry about any further injuries from him. You know, that is going to be the key for Phoenix. How healthy the team as a whole will be throughout the playoffs. Pretty much all of their major players have had some type of injury at some point this season. Booker, Paul, Aiden, and of course KD. So we'll have to see how that plays out. The Clippers are starting to pull some things together, so they are going to make the playoffs. We got Pride Hunter checking into the lineup. What's going on? What up, Doug? Checking in from that place called the Dealer somewhere roundabouts. What's going on, Pride? Talking some NBA, your favorite. Basically right now going through the playoff lineup. At six is Golden State. Now Golden State has been playing well these last couple weeks, I must admit. Was very surprised that they found a way to beat Philadelphia the other night. Understanding that right now, in my personal estimation, no, it should not be the Joker for a third season as MVP, but in fact should be Joel Embiid finally winning one this year because he is not only the highest scorer in the league right now, but also one of the better defenders in the league when you talk about his low post play. So you got to remember, if you are people who have followed Joel Embiid throughout his career, even through his time in college at Kansas, you've got to note the vast improvement over the years in his overall play. He always had that potential, even in college, of some of the things he did. But to play on the level he is playing now, he definitely should be rewarded for his undying, relentless play, for staying relatively healthy throughout the entire season, for basically playing the amount of minutes that he has played in the post. I definitely think he should be the MVP this season, and he is showing that in his play. He even showed that night against Golden State, but they found a way to beat him. They played a very interesting defense with him, having him basically come out on offense more times than not out of the post so that they were able to utilize their shooting ability to beat them. Pride is checking in with his comments. He is saying this Western Conference is tight as hell. Last time I looked a couple days ago, there was like a game dividing 6 to 10, and the seeds change almost daily. Absolutely right, Pride. Like I said, going into today, we had Phoenix 39-35, Clippers 39-36, Golden State 39-36, New Orleans 37-37, Minnesota 37-37, Lakers 37-38, OKC 37-38, Dallas 36-39, Utah 35-39. That's just a couple games. We got about 9 to go. It could go any type of way. It's even a possibility Memphis may get to the number one seed. I don't think it's going to happen, mind you, but it's set up to where it could happen. There's only a couple games separating them in Denver. So, yeah, the West is far from decided. It's probably going to go down to the last day of the season as to who's going to make it to the play-in round. And, of course, the league is definitely cheering for teams like the Lakers and New Orleans to make it because of the fact that they are those type of markets. Are you a fan of the new play-in tournament, yay or nay, and why? Actually, yeah, I kind of am a fan. I mean, of course, much like when they added the wild cards to the baseball, and the extra wild cards to the football. I think it makes the end of the year more relevant. Definitely makes it to where you cannot just sit down and rest your players these last 5 or 6 games, at least not in the West, because of how tight it is. So you get some quality play throughout the season, not just that first 70 or 72 games, and then that last couple weeks you just basically waiting for it all to be over. So I like it for that reason. I also like it because of the kind of one and done aspect that it's kind of set up to be, where basically 7 and 8, 9, 10 play each other, and 9, 10 player they get a chance to play 7 seed and see if they can be the 8 seed and all, and so on and so forth. I like the way they have it set up. I kind of wish though that they would go to the format that is in the WNBA, where basically after each round they reseat everybody and they base that as to who gets home court advantage from that point forward. So that if your number one seed, number two seeds lose, you as a 3 seed have a chance to be a top on the next round, and so on and so forth. Hopefully they will make that adjustment or something similar to that somewhere down the line. But yeah, I actually do like the play-in tournament, and I think it's good for the game overall. Absolutely. I mean, they even have the extra season in hockey, and we'll briefly discuss that in a moment. But like I said, in the meanwhile, I'm definitely looking forward to this last week or two of the season. I believe the playoffs start, I want to say April 12th with the play-in tournaments. And then we go from there. Definitely looking forward to it. Hopefully it'll be as good as it was last season, particularly some of those early rounds. We got some great matchups early on. Teams like the New Orleans Pelicans and also who I want to throw in that mix there. Atlanta and such, made some decent runs early on before they was ousted by the eventual winners and such. Obviously, we look at this and we don't see Golden State as being a lot to make the finals, let alone to repeat as champions. If you twisted my arm right now as to who I thought would win it all at this point, kind of hard not to argue with Milwaukee at this point if they continue to be healthy, just based on the amount of people they have that are good both offensively and defensively. But would not be surprised if they get beat out by Boston or Philly in the East. And of course, the West, who knows? Who knows? I mean, a lot depends on who's going to come back healthy in these next few days. When you consider, I mean, just look at the teams in the West and some of the players that's out. Denver healthy now. Memphis just got Ja back. Sacramento, they pretty much straight. But then, of course, you got Phoenix. We're trying to see what's going on with your boy KD. You got the Clippers. Of course, Paul George is out. Will he be back sometime this year? You got Golden State Warriors waiting on Andrew Wiggins to come on back to the lineup. You got Minnesota, who just got Cat back, and we got to see how well he'll continue to play. You got New Orleans still waiting to see if Zion Williamson is going to play. You got the Lakers waiting on LeBron, so on and so forth. So we definitely have to factor all that in as to what's going to go on in the West and what goes on in the East. All right, Pride checking in yet again. Golden State is a perfect example of how important depth is in the league. Wiggins is so important to that team and their success, yet most people don't realize it's because he isn't a superstar. And it's because of that play where he has decided, okay, even though I was a number one pick at some point, out here, the number one overall pick that is, I decided that, yeah, I need to put all that behind me and I need to just play my best ball on both ends of the court and just be part of the collective. And that ultimately led to me getting a championship ring last year. And I will continue to play that way because, yes, on certain teams like, say, Pistons, Wiggins will obviously be the best player by far. By far. But this team, he is just one of the collective. And that is why Golden State has been successful all these years. Yes, they do have superstars on that team, but they also have people that are great at playing the role they are assigned to. In particular, one Draymond Green, who basically is the engine that kind of motors all of that when they are playing well, truth be told. But that, of course, we will get into even more so when we talk playoffs, either on the Game Time Audible or here on the Sports Report. Like I said, you will probably regularly find this show on the Instagram, as we will work that out soon to where we will have that live. And we'll probably come to you like once or twice a week with this show. It's not going to be quite as long as the Game Time Audible. We're going to be shutting it down in a few actually, but we do hope that it catches on and that you like it as well and share it with others and post and like and subscribe and all that good stuff. With that being said, definitely looking forward to NBA playoffs. Want to talk a little hockey because hockey season is boiling down as well. They got about 7-8 games left. Keep in mind, right now, hockey's kind of looking like how the women's side of the tourney's looking. You got Boston, the Boston Bruins, who have by far the best record in the league. In fact, are set up to have one of the best records ever in a hockey season at the rate they are playing. They have the most points. They will be the President's Cup winner, which is basically awarded to the team who has the most points in the league every year. They don't have many superstars on that team, but they play extremely well with one another. They play well on the road. They play well at home. They play well on the power play. Basically, all the major components that you would want your hockey team to have, they have it. So good luck to any team in the East playing them when playoff times come. And it's good luck in general because it's basically their cup to lose right now, as most of your hockey experts would say. Also, you want to keep an eye out in these last few games for the best scorer in the league right now. That would be one Connor McDavid, who plays for the Edmonton Oilers. Yes, those Edmonton Oilers, the one that the great one once played for, Yari Curry, and a lot of those great players that went on to win cups both with Edmonton and other places. Definitely want to check out what he does. He currently has 60 goals last I checked. He is trying to get to 70. Only a precious few people have scored 70 goals in the season. Of course, Gretzky being one of them, Yari Curry another. I believe Mario Lemieux did as well at some point. Basically one of the better hockey seasons you will see. He already is on pace to have 300 plus goals. I think he's only played like 6, maybe 7 seasons in the NHL. He is not even 30 yet. He definitely will probably end up as one of the top 5 or 6 goal scorers of all time when all is said and done. If you are a hockey fan or you just basically want to see who plays good hockey, you definitely want to check him out with the Edmonton Oilers. So that being said, check it out. Like I said, if you want to see good hockey, the time to tune in for it is now in this playoff run and definitely during the Stanley Cup. Good job by all of the networks for definitely featuring sports more, particularly on the weekend. I think that is the plan now, to basically have the programming during the weekend time to be primarily sports related, with all the major sports, including the women's sports. They are slated to play even some national women's soccer league games at some point later on this year, which ought to be interesting for those of you who have not watched it. Basically, the highest professional league here in the States. So look forward to that. Got a lot of sports next week, so keep in mind if you are looking for things to watch. Of course, have, like I mentioned before, the rest of the Final Four for the men and women. You got, of course, the NBA and NHL winding down. And let us not forget, Major League Baseball starts this week. And it's going to be real interesting to see how the new rules they have implemented affect the games. Going to talk to Pride right quick. How much longer do you think it will be in terms of season before our Red Wings become truly competitive again? I'm hoping, Pride, that with the moves that have been made by Mr. Yzerman between now and the ones he'll probably make an offseason, that we will at least be playoff worthy next year. And I think it's going to be another 2 or 3 years before we are in that upper epsilon again. Remember, we have the record for playoff runs in the NHL. Over 25 seasons in a row, we made it to the playoffs before this sad little turn we've taken in the last 5 years or so. I would love for us to get back there. I think it is very important for one of our major sports teams, at least one, to be championship contenders in these next few years as we are trying to revitalize and rejuvenate the city once again. I think that is very important to its growth, not only just downtown, but the city in general, because I think it will draw more people to the city. Remember, we have the NFL draft coming here next year. We have the Final Four coming in a couple years. We need our teams to do well so people can see more of the games, see more of Detroit being highlighted, bring more fans to come here to check us out, to see the city for themselves and say, hey, Detroit ain't bad at all. I wouldn't mind hanging out here. So I'm looking forward for one of these teams, whether it be the Red Wings or the Lions or Pistons, Tigers, whichever one, to do that. And yes, we also do have WWE SummerSlam coming here in August. That is correct. Not funny. Not funny at all, Pride. That does bring quite a bit of cachet and money with it. There will definitely be people coming here to the city for SummerSlam. Now, I do believe it's going to be around the same time that they have the auto show this year. So that will definitely bring some money into the city. So I'm really hoping that that is successful and that they have the little things that they do and, take advantage of the outside area over there at Joe Louis Arena so people could come and check things out if they're not able to afford the SummerSlam. I definitely would like for them to do a pop-up shop so people could buy some wrestling stuff and whatnot. That'd be cool. So that being said, we're about to shut down this Big Buck Sports Report for this evening. I hope you enjoyed my talk. Look forward to getting back with my co-host, Hugh D. Lee, with the Game Time Audible. For those of you who follow Hugh exclusively, please know that we want you to do so and support. If you do not follow him, what you waiting on? You know what it is. We're going to advertise that like we do on the other show, Pure to the Game, his personal sports blog where he highlights all of the matchups and gives you the latest on NFL and NHL and NBA and sports in between as well. Keep in mind, did not speak on it much, but wasn't much going on in terms of the Hot Stove League this week. We are waiting to see what's going to happen with one Aaron Rodgers and, of course, the saga that has become Lamar Jackson. Will he stay in Baltimore? Will he actually get some offer from somewhere else and get traded there? We will see. And still a couple other small moves we made, like OBJ and where Zeke Elliott ends up, that type of stuff. But we will definitely get into those things. Subscribe to Pure to the Game and do so like an Uso. That's right, Us. Absolutely. Pride definitely is one of the people that is one of the subscribers to the Pure to the Game. Let me give you a little bit more taste of that before we head out. Because I got to look out for my mans and them. Check out the program if you will. Have you been scrolling Facebook and looking for that quick sports fix? Want a quick peek of what's going on in the latest sports news? Check out Pure to the Game sports blog with the sports guru, Hugh D. Lee. He'll get you together. Check it out. Follow it on Facebook. Make sure you like it. Yes, people, so definitely check that out and understand we are still in the process of working on the website for the Nighthawk Network, where you'll be able to find all of these shows in one location. Basically, this takes a little time to understand a little cash to get it all properly situated. So it's going to be a minute, but we will definitely get there. We are definitely working on improvements to that, working on new promos. Definitely want to offer the opportunity for people who want to advertise here on the network to get some of your goods and services sold, to reach to me so we could do some business with you and put you on the show, even interview you on some of the podcasts perhaps so we can get some more exposure. All of that is very helpful. We definitely want to promote minority and Black business here as well. So that being said, I'm your boy E Buck. I'm about to call it an evening. Thank you very much for tuning into the show again. Check out the hookup here. As we hear the sirens in the background, hopefully that's not stopping nowhere close to here. Again, this is, I believe I want to play either for the outro, leave the comments or the minister. Let's keep my very strong. We got other possibilities to work with. end up like meanwhile, I gotta go in the store because we have no outro yet and don't know how to. Meanwhile, boy E-Buck, check it out. I'll let you hear